Welcome back to Between Sundays, the podcast where Christians are trying to figure things out where most of life happens. I'm Bobby.
I'm Justice.
And today we are getting into an interesting episode.
Yeah.
Something we kind of haven't done before. We've talked about it a little bit. But our first kind of reaction podcast today or episode today. So definitely looking forward to it. And we won't say just yet who we're reacting to. We'll get into that in just a second. But it's good to have our we haven't given a title. I guess producer, studio, sound engineer. Casey's back in the studio today.
Yeah.
And he had a little break there as he's finishing out his senior year. You know, life is busy and crazy, and obviously he didn't want to fail, so he had to study for things, all that good stuff. But just coming back from the Keys and everything, they had a fun trip
Must be
down
nice.
there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, most of us have to work and do things.
We work for a living. So.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So down in the Keys, had a good time. Caught some fish. Nobody died. That was good. I say.
Oh.
Last year they had an interesting story because they had the Coast Guard called.
Yeah.
Because people got lost on jet skis. This year, I don't think as far as that goes, wasn't as eventful, other than one of our seniors about lost his feet.
Shout out Matthew's feet.
Yeah, one of our seniors about lost his feet because he had, what was it, Casey? Almost second-degree sunburn is what it was? Yeah, almost second-degree sunburn. Yeah. So we hope Matthew's doing well. Prayers and all that
Speedy
stuff.
recovery.
Speedy recovery. We hope everything's good with that. So, but it is pretty much done around here. As far as school goes, they're in their half days this week, and they are done. Yeah. Everybody's checking out final parties. My
everyone's true colors come out this last week of
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't want to be here anymore.
And that's more the teachers, not the students.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think Asher, he had his party the other day, and I go in there and see all the food. It is just all sugar, all that stuff. Yeah. It was cupcakes and Sunny D.
Nice.
That's a combo right there. So, but it was a fun day. But, yeah, everybody's wrapping up. Summertime about to hit. All the camps and conferences and all the youth trips that we
Busyness.
take. Yeah, all the fun that comes with it. So, But anyway, looking forward to today and getting into our episode. Really today spawned from a clip from Facebook that I had gotten on my stories. And just kind of scroll, I know we had an episode on doom scrolling, probably was doing it that day. But I was scrolling through Facebook and come across this, and I'll say this person hasn't come across my stories in a while, so it's kind of surprising a little bit. And then asked you if you'd seen it. You hadn't seen it yet, and so we kind of looked into it. I sent it to you. I think we looked at some other podcasts that had actually picked up this clip as well, and we're talking about it. So we figured, hey, let's bring it in here today and kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
Which I always like this stuff, especially when it kind of comes out of the blue and it surprises you. I remember kind of similar to this was years ago, had a clip come across my social media of a well-known atheist that asked a pretty challenging question. And so I think today's kind of really getting into something like that today, of a question or topic that kind of came out of nowhere that wasn't in anybody's sermon or anybody's Bible study. So I don't know. Hopefully this will be a good episode today to make everybody think as far as what's going on. And so really today getting into if anybody has seen or heard him on social media, a influencer by the name of Theo Vaughn, and he's got podcasts, been on podcasts,
comedian.
All that. So comedian, yeah. And he's taking these calls in, and there's a guy that kind of giving some context of the front end of it. Of this guy calls in, and he's just asking for life advice, just how to make his life better. Kind of having the right mentality, all that stuff. And kind of Theo Vaughn is answering to that.
Yeah.
In this conversation. Not with the guy, it's a recording of the guy, but he's answering the guy back on this on this podcast that he's talking about, and really kind of intriguing.
Yeah, he's the guy that's calling into Theo's podcast is he really doesn't give much context to who he is.
Yeah.
He sounds like a college student. We would let the listeners of on here listen to it. We would have to bleep out a lot of stuff.
So we'll just give the context.
We're going to kind of give context to it, so we don't have to necessarily do that. Theo Vaughn isn't necessarily someone that I just recommend people listen. I mean, this to my knowledge, he hasn't put anything out spiritual or biblical. It's not necessarily that we agree with what he's saying, but what he's talking about here is something that this guy calls in, and he's like, I wake up in the morning, I go to my job, I get drunk, I go do class, I study for a job that one day I hope makes me enough money to continue to drink, to go home. And he's like, I'm living this cycle. And he's pretty much telling Theo Vaughn, who's not a spiritual person, that I'm wanting to know, is this all that there is?
Yeah.
It's like he's just kind of hit the end of his road, and he's like, this is me being honest. This is what I do on a daily basis. He's like, I wake up, I think about, is this all we really have to live for? Get drunk, go to class, go home, get drunk again. I mean, he's like, all of it is just this big question he's asking himself of just, what is this?
Yeah.
And so Theo Vaughn kind of gets into this a little bit on a personal side, and of course we're going to play this. But this is just going to be Theo talking just for a minute, and we're going to kind of stop and talk about little bits and pieces. But I'm going to go ahead and start the video. So where it's going to start is him kind of reacting to what this guy's called in and talked about.
All right, Theo, thanks, man.
Thanks so much for the call. I don't think you said your name at the beginning, but thank you. Yeah, the cycle of just like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I would kind of, for me, I'm going to try that. I would let myself down. I would try and I would ask God to help me. And I'd be like, I would pray, but I would and it was the same thing. And I appreciate you being so articulate in your call and doing your best to share as honestly as you could what was going on. I'll try to share. I've been struggling, man. The past couple years, I've had, it's been a struggle in certain ways with certain behaviors that I'm just not proud of, right? Or really just behaviors that I didn't want to do anymore. And I couldn't change it. I couldn't change the cycle. And even as I say this, I'm afraid that I'll fall back into those behaviors. But I'll tell you what for me has been helpful recently. And I'm sorry if I sound a little animated. I've been going through this in my own life recently, and it's on the tip of my thoughts and feelings. Sometimes I realized for myself, I would pray to God to help me get away from certain behaviors in my life. But at the same time that I was praying, there would be a part of me that knew I was probably going to do those things again. That I was probably going to do those things again. Like a big God, please help me. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have this behavior. But there'll be a little part of me that was like, I know even as I ask for God's help that I'm going to do it again. I would know that. So I started praying like this. I started praying like, God, please help me with this. This is a broken part of me that I bring to you. I need help with it. And then I would add to my prayer, I would say, and even as I pray to you right now, there's a part of me that knows I'm probably lying to you. There's a part of me that knows I'm going to do that behavior again. So can you come into that part of me and help me there? Help me in the part of me that knows as I pray that I'm lying. And I don't know if that sounds crazy or not, but but I started to think that like a connection between us and a higher power, it's such the realest. It's like in my life, it's one of the realest things that I've ever witnessed, right? Like you go in, like I'll be in meetings and or recovery meetings or and you see people's lives change. You see something happen. You see miracles, right? But that was what was happening. It was, I couldn't change. I tried everything. I tried everything to change. I would tell myself I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do that. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it by myself. And my whole life I'd done everything by myself. I thought I had. And so something that's just been helping me recently is just praying differently, because whatever's inside of me that's broken is really, it's manipulative and it's, it would be good at pool because it's good at the angles. But so I've just been praying that God comes into those parts of me, Don't just come into like the water inside of me. Come into the well. Come into the walls of the well. Come into the mortar or whatever that's between the bricks. Because I'm broken. Because I'm broken all the way there.
And again, this isn't something that he's ever professed salvation. He for a long time was a pretty regular drug user.
Yeah.
Having a rough life. And it's never something that he's ever just said, I'm a Christian, I'm saved.
Yeah, I've never seen any episode of anything or anything online that says it.
And truthfully, the stuff that I have seen on him, it's definitely leans the opposite way of like the lifestyle that he has. And he also is something that we both noticed in this is very close to something.
Yeah.
He's searching for something, but is still not quite at that point.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've talked about before. You can have head knowledge, but it's the heart knowledge that you have to have. And he knows what he's wanting to do.
Yeah.
But it's like he just can't get himself to get to this point. And kind of even the reason we're showing this today, this is a real dude. Like, besides being famous, besides, having all the accomplishments worldly that he has, this dude's asking real questions that we've all asked at times. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm searching for something. He knows he's broken. He's longing for something more, but doesn't quite. He just can't put his finger on it yet.
Yeah.
And
well, what I love about it too, is you're just hearing genuine conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. I know we know it on our side of things. Like, it's not churchy sounding. It's not. And if you've ever heard stuff, like, he's a very quick talker. He's always like, just spitting stuff out, all that stuff. Like, to even just see his
slowing down, his posture through it, all that stuff. Like, you can see there is like you said, you can see there's a searching in this that, is one of those things of if just the right person would come along or the right answers could be given. There's no telling, what could happen through this. But man, one thing he said through that is he's at this acknowledgement of like, even if I get filled up with seemingly the right stuff, him talking about, not just the water, but like the well itself. Like, he's just talking about, my life is broken. So even if good things are in it, it's just going to go out because it's not changed to the place where it could
almost contain what's inside of it.
And again, he talks about it. He's been to the recovery meetings. He's seen a change in people. He's just not. He's just still wondering why this change not for me.
Yeah.
And so there's still some more to it. We're gonna.
But I want to bring up this though too, kind of on the opposite side of that.
Yeah.
For those that do know the Lord, kind of something that kind of hit me the first time listening to that is him talking about that praying of, Lord, I want change, but you already know I'm lying about this. And that hit pretty big too.
Nobody will be honest about that part.
No, because here's the thing. I've kind of said this phrase before, like you can't expect a lost person to make decisions like a saved person.
Exactly.
So obviously our heart and prayer would be that Theo Vaughn would come to know Jesus Christ and that he would give his life over to him and true change would happen. But he's gonna default back to those things that flesh wants without knowing God. But let's kind of flip that to the Christian side of things. How many of us have prayed prayers like that, knowing full well when we get done, we're going back and doing that thing. And that's kind of hit me like a ton of bricks when he said that, because I'm like, man, how many times in my life have I made this showing at an altar? How many times have I gone down in a service and prayed about something, or been in my prayer closet and prayed something, and I know what I need to pray because it sounds good.
Yeah.
I know what I need to pray because I think that's what God wants to hear. But my flesh and that carnal side of me also is talking in my mind to be like, yeah, you're going right back to this. Like you're already thinking about the moment that you can go back and do that thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of stepping on some toes a little bit of, again, you kind of know somebody in his place, they're going to go back to those things.
Yeah.
But man, how much more? And we were talking about earlier a little bit of scripture through this Romans chapter 7, and I'll try to read it obviously without getting tongue tied because this is one of those fun passages.
Yeah.
But he's speaking here, and he said, "For that which I do,
Paul.
I allow not." Paul speaking. He said, "For what I would, that do I not, but what I hate, that do I. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. Now then, it is no more that I do it, but sin that dwelleth in me." And that is true. It's that flesh, it's that sin that is in us that wants to go back to that thing. That's why the Bible talks about that every day we've got to crucify this flesh. We've got to kill it daily. Yeah. Or just as much as our heart or our soul or the saved side of us is speaking, just as much as that flesh speaking, wanting to go back to those things. He says, "For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me." And he's saying, look, I want to do right.
Yeah.
The saved side of me, the part that God's gotten a hold of, wants to do right. But guess what? On the inside may be what God has done in my life, but guess what? It's still wrapped in this old flesh that still deals with struggles every day. He says, "For the will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not." Mm-hmm. How much more could we overcome if we'd get to that acknowledgement right there?
Yeah.
Of saying, I want to do right, but I'm struggling on how to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get to that place, we can also get to the place of saying, God, if I don't know how to do right, you've got to do right through me. Mm-hmm. God, I've got to have you to do those things. He says, "For the good that I would, I do not. But the evil which I would not, that I do." He's saying, look, it's flop. I want to do the right things.
Yeah.
I want to go after what is right, but I don't know how to do it. And he says it again, "Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it." He's saying, look, me doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Why? Because God's got a hold of me. Me acknowledges, my soul, that part of my life that God has saved, acknowledges it's not right, but it's still sin that dwelleth in me. Yeah. It's still that flesh that I deal with. And again, I'm telling you, that hit me like a ton of bricks listening to this first time, because again, you kind of expect, I hate to say it, you kind of expect that out of somebody that doesn't know Christ. But what do we have in this excuse?
Yeah.
As we're praying, as we're saying, all right, Lord, yeah, God, forgive me of this or change me of this. But all of the time in our mind, we're saying, well, but I know I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah.
And he's saying through that, and how much more could we overcome if our prayer was even like that, of times of saying, God, I need you to help. I need you to help that side that's saying it wants to do wrong. Literally in the moment that I'm praying to do right, God, I need you to help me conquer the side that's saying it wants to do wrong at the same time. And man, how much better would life be, or how much could we overcome if we change some of that mentality?
Yeah, I mean, he's I truly believe that his moral compass is what is carrying him right now. Him knowing that this is wrong.
Yeah.
But again, our topic that we were planning on doing today was spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And we scratched it to do an episode on spiritual warfare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's having this battle inside of him of saying, and again, I don't want to put him in a spot where it's like he's obviously not saved. But your moral compass is only going to take you so far.
Yeah.
You can only fight these battles for so long by yourself. I have seen people grow up in church and again have a head knowledge of Christ, and they are morally a good person. And people will even acknowledge that they're a good person.
Yeah.
But when sin is present, they continue time after time to keep going down the same road.
Yeah.
And you're like, why do you just keep doing the things that you're not supposed to? Morally, they know what they're supposed to do. But I truly believe, as much as Paul says this, think of everything good that Paul did through Christ.
Yeah.
And is still saying this kind of stuff, but at the same time is getting done saying this and living a godly life.
Yeah.
And he's putting himself, Theo is putting himself very in a vulnerable spot of saying, you can see he's longing for something. And this is what I love about this clip. We're really going to, and here in a second, I'm going to play it, and we're really going to get down to what he's talking from the heart.
Yeah.
And then the truth comes out. So we're going to go ahead and hit the play button. And we'll
and I don't mean that like in self-pity. But if there's a part of me that doesn't even want the best for me, then there's something inside of me that is off. So that's something that's been helping me, because some of it's been coming true. And I don't know if it's been coming true. I don't know if that's a term, but I don't know. I'm starting to just feel something different. And then I was looking on this Bible,
I love how.
And there's a story called John 5, and it's about a guy who's at these pools. And some people follow the Bible, some people don't. That's fine. This is just a story that I'm reciting here. And Jesus is at the pools, and it's in Bethesda, and they're like, there's a sick man there, and he's been sick for a long time. And Jesus asks him, "Do you want to be healed?" He asks him, "Do you want to be healed?" And that's a crazy question, because, if I get healed, then I'm different.
I mean, that's what it's boiling down to.
Yeah.
I mean, he's came full circle here with this, and he says, I'm longing to do something better, but do I really want to?
Yeah.
He's and I've got the verse pulled up here, John chapter 5 and verse number 5. A certain man was there, which in an infirmity 38 years. So he's been crippled for a long time.
Been used to that life.
Been very, I would argue to say, very comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He has succumbed to his illness and has made it a point where he's like, I'm different, but I'm still wanting something else.
Yeah.
Jesus, it says in verse number 6, then Jesus saw him lie and knew he had been now a long time in that case. He saith unto him, wilt thou be made whole? And he asked him again the question of, are you going to get better?
Yeah.
Like, are you wanting to? The verse and kind of context to it, they were believing that the pool of Bethesda would be troubled or would be stirred.
Yeah.
And the first ones in the water would be the ones that got healed.
Mm-hmm.
And he was searching out the truth that he thought was the truth.
Yeah.
When the waters hadn't been stirred ever. And he's lying here expecting something to happen, expecting some change in his life, and he is in the complete wrong place to be healed.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he's going with what he knows.
Yeah.
And it's something that there's so many Christians out there that are doing the same monotony thing
Yeah.
every single day, expecting something different and having the same outcome because they are just doing it because other people are doing it.
Yeah.
They're just doing it because this is something I feel like I'm supposed to, or somebody else told me I'm supposed to. And Jesus is like, are you really going to get healed here?
Yeah.
Like, are you, he's asking him the question, do you want to be healed? Of course. But he's saying, is this where you're going to find change?
Yeah.
Is this the place where you're going to find something that you've been after? And that's what Theo's talking about. He's like, do I want to change?
Yeah. Well, the thing about that story too, I mean, as you look in John chapter 5, like this guy had been this way for a long time. So like you said, could have easily justified that's how life's going to be. Could have gotten very comfortable in that life, used to that life. I'm sure he could function, do all that stuff. You know, so there's this place where you just kind of, a lot of people feel like they just come to grips with it and they just think that's what life is going to be. But one thing that is noticeable through this is even though he had gotten comfortable with his life, he still was near a place where he thought change could happen. And that's what's so intriguing to me is if there was still something inside of him that was almost like, but if it could happen.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. He was still within proximity of where he thought healing could happen. Mm-hmm. You know, if he was so fine with his life, why wasn't he just somewhere else?
Yeah.
Why didn't Jesus find him anywhere else but those pools?
Yeah.
And it's almost like kind of with this clip right here is like, you know, in a lot of ways, you got somebody like Theo Vaughn justifying and almost trying to convince himself that his life is fine.
Yeah.
You know, of like, hey, I've overcome some things. Maybe I'm not an addict anymore. Maybe in my eyes, life is good, but he's still within reach of something.
Yeah.
At the fact that he's praying, at the fact that he's reading a Bible, at the fact that he's searching. It's almost that like, well, I'm okay, but what if something could happen?
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of what I see through this is like, you know, this place of him wondering, and he gets into it, and you'll hear a little bit more of it, but it's that he talks about life being good in some of these, you know, in some of this, you know, and other things, just of getting over stuff, him talking about going to the, so he's making steps towards right things.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to meet, you know, you've heard him, I'm going to meetings, I'm seeing, he's making the steps towards it, but it's that, he's getting to that place of like, but is this going to bring full change in my life? Is the efforts of what I've done really going to satisfy me, or is it I need something else that even I can't do for myself.
Yeah. This is one of my biggest fears within youth ministry, within ministry as a whole, within anything that we do. My fear is the people that are, again, morally doing what they're supposed to be doing. They've seen God work.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen change for others. They are, again, this lame man is where he thinks he's supposed to be. He is put, and this is the thing with this story, man, he puts himself in the best position for his life to change.
Yeah.
And it's still not Jesus. And it doesn't matter if you're in church for a day or you've been in church your entire life. If you're not where the truth is at,
Mm-hmm.
it's still going to send you to the same hell that the worst of the worst is going to go to.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most heartbreaking things of knowing that there's going to be some people that are going to be doing everything they thought they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
They're going to be sitting exactly where they thought they were supposed to be doing and questioning, do I really want to change? And they're still going to have one day stand before Christ and he's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you.
Yeah.
And it goes deeper past the change. It goes to the point of like, am I really wanting something different?
Yeah.
Like change is one thing. Am I wanting this situation to change?
Yeah. Well, it's an acknowledgement. I mean, he says it. I mean, he said a phrase that probably better than most of us preachers have said before. He said, when with healing comes change.
Yeah.
Any interaction with Christ is going to bring change.
Yeah.
And we know, obviously, being Christians, we know how amazing that change can be.
Yeah.
But unless that person acknowledges and accepts how good it can be, and that's what, and I think that's where he's at, is like this. I know change. It's almost like he's like, I know change can happen. He's talking about in the meetings. I've seen it happen. But do I acknowledge that that's what I want from my life?
Mm-hmm.
Am I ready for that kind of change? Am I ready for life to be different? I don't know if it's a scared thing or what, maybe, figuratively, he's so used to laying at that pool for so long, it's a scary thing to think of what life would be outside of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But it's that thing of, we can tell people all day long about it and share the gospel, and rightly we should tell people about what God can do and how amazing Christ is. But at the end of the day, they've got to acknowledge and accept it, that is what is needed for their life, and then it's better than where they are currently.
Yeah. He's and kind of we had listened to a radio talk show that had kind of talked on this a little bit, and they are in, I guess, kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. They have a friend who is very capable of laying a clear presentation of the gospel out to Theo. And they had asked their friend, is he asking questions? And they said yes. Yeah. But again, questions have never saved anybody. Yeah. And I don't want to act like, Theo Vaughn can't get saved. But it's deeper than it's deeper than just having the right moral compass.
Yeah.
And that's kind of continuing. That's kind of what we'll listen.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody gets healed, they have a new story. So that's just been something that I've been having to ask myself. It's like, yeah, do I want to be healed? Do I really want something different? And sometimes a lot of the answer is no, I don't.
Again, that's not what Jesus asked.
Yeah.
Jesus said, are you going to be changed by getting in this water?
Yeah.
Jesus is saying, this isn't the healing that you're looking for. But I truthfully believe Jesus is asking, Theo, do you want to change?
Yeah.
He's at what he got out of it is, do I really want to? And he's coming to the spot of his own personal realization, and he just says, I don't think I want to.
Yeah.
I want something different, but I don't want to. I don't know if I'm scared of it. I don't know what I am. I don't know if I don't want to do what it takes to get. I can't even tell what it is. And it's hard for me. Some of this stuff's a little bit hard for me to say. I don't even know why, but I think I want a new story. You know, my story in my life, and I'm sorry to make this about me kind of, but I'm just trying to share, like, you know, when I was growing up, like, my mom, something was wrong with her. I love my mother, you know, but she didn't connect with me. She didn't, like, look at me, and she didn't, you know, she wouldn't hold me that much, and she didn't look, she wouldn't look me in the eyes, right? And so as a kid, I felt like something was wrong with me. You know, I felt like, oh, if the person that created me won't even look at me, then something must be so wrong with me. You know, and I've worked through a lot of this stuff, and so I'm kind of going down this lane. But it just gave me like a lot of low self-worth. You know, it just gave me low self-worth. And honestly, it made it tough for me to even have a self, because the only person that I only knew who I was if you reacted to me well, right? Like, I became just a people pleaser because I didn't have any feelings of self-worth. So the only way I could get my worth was from you, right? From somebody else. And it made sense because I didn't have a me. You know, I didn't have a big sense of self. And so I got myself from who you thought I was. And I needed everybody to like me. I needed everybody to like me because I didn't know if there was a one person that didn't like me, if one of the plates stopped spinning, if it was all going to fall down. So anyway, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but the thing that also happened was that all of that energy, that negative energy, that uncertainty, that became my story, right? And it gave me like a chip on my shoulder where it was like, you know, I'm going to show, you know, I'll do this, and it gave me all of that. It gave me all of that energy. Like, I'll prove to them, I'll prove to somebody that I'm worth something. I'm going to make, I just want to look in somebody's eyes and have them be pleased with me. That's what I wanted.
And he goes on and again, is the exact same way this man is expecting to get healed.
Yeah.
The right place at the right time, something's going to happen. These waters are going to be stirred. And for a long time, I'm sure this lame man said, I'm going to get myself to the waters.
Yeah.
Then later on, he says, nobody would carry me to him. And it's not something that your salvation isn't something that you have to work for. It's something that you have to just simply realize.
Yeah.
The gift of God is eternal life. And the gift is not something that you have to do anything more than to just receive it.
Yeah.
And I guess if I had one thing, like he's going to hear this, if I had one thing to say to Theo Vaughn, God has never made a mistake, and he won't start with you.
Yeah.
And if any of the listeners today feel that salvation was something that they accepted on a piece of paper or through a prayer because they just wanted someone to be happy with them,
Yeah.
it's not worth going to hell to make someone else happy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he talks a lot more about really the same stuff. He's searching for something that he can get himself to.
Yeah.
And the best thing a Christian can do is realize the only control God has called you to have is self-control. And say, I'm only in charge of the way I act and react to things.
Yeah.
And allowing Christ to be in charge and rule in your life of saying, I can't do this. He hasn't reached the place, in my opinion, where he's came to the end of himself.
Yeah.
We've talked about it so many times with the prodigal son. He hasn't came to the place where it's gotten to where he just says, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's there is nothing more there is nothing that excites me anymore than having teenagers, young people, adults even say, I just can't do this anymore. That's what you're trying, that's what the Christian life is trying to get to. The part where you throw your hands up and say, I give up. It's the point where the flesh dies. It's the point where the devil finally has no control over you of saying, I can't continue going this way anymore myself. Yeah. And the devil tells you that this is you do not want to get to this place. And God says, I've been waiting for you to get to this place.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for you to throw your hands up and say, I can't do this anymore. I have so many times in my life where I thought I hit the roadblock and the end of the road of crying out to God and saying, God, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And him saying, this is what I was trying to get you to.
Yeah.
Because the end of yourself has to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
There is no coexistence. There's not me and Christ have our will and we continue doing what we want to do. The part that the flesh dies, it's only then that the Lord can take over and take control. It again is not something that is I'm driving the car and he's telling me where to go. It's he's driving the car and I'm just thankful I'm in the car.
Yeah.
And we put so much pressure on ourselves to live a Christian life when we should just be putting the pressure on ourselves to say, am I making God happy in this? Mm-hmm. Am I pleasing him right now?
Yeah.
Am I dying to self? What Paul says, this flesh, there is no good in me. Am I dying to what I need to let die? Or what am I hanging on to?
Yeah.
And that's where he's at.
Oh, yeah.
He's at the point of of saying, I don't know if I want change, but I want change.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to continue this, but I don't want to continue living this way. And he's playing this tug of war with God. And God, this is the thing, God will let you live your life the way you want to.
Yeah.
God will let you mess up and mess up and mess up and mess up and mess up. There is no point where God says, you're not doing this right. I'll do that in a heartbeat. Of you're not doing this right anymore, let me do it. God just sits there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's at a place where the only thing really that is stopping change is himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where he's at with this. Making the excuses, am I ready for this? I mean, that's no different than what this guy was doing here. He said, Jesus looks at him and said, are you going to be made whole? Are you going to see that change? He says, well, I have nobody to carry me there. Yeah. And what I love through that story is Jesus never looks at him and said, well, come on, here, I'm going to help you get to the pool. Yeah. No, he just changes everything and said, hey, what you think is going to bring change, let me show you what's really going to make your life different. He said, it's almost like Jesus is like, look, we don't even have to get down there. It can happen for you right here in this moment. Yeah. You don't have to, I look at that story and there's a piece in it that talks about the porches around the pool. And it made me wonder, I wonder how long that guy worked after this person got up and after this person to try to get closer and closer and closer. All of his efforts to, if I can just get on that porch, if I can just get a little bit closer, if I can get a little bit closer. And Jesus isn't like, hey, let me take you the rest of the way. He says, look, don't even worry about what you think you need. Let me show you really what's going to make change in your life. And, really where he's at, talking about Theo Vaughn and asking these questions, the day he can finally set the last excuse aside and the day he can come to grips with it's worth that change. The beauty of it, and like you said, he don't have to work towards it. He don't have to get down any more porches. He doesn't even have to get to the pool. He's just got to acknowledge that the one that's standing there talking to him will give him the change that he needs in his life and do more than just clean him up. Yeah. That's what I love about this story, too, as he's talking through this. And I love, I've looked into different times of Jesus' miracles and things like that. And you see there's times where Jesus heals a physical need. And then you see moments where he talks about being made whole. And, it's one of those things, the beauty of Christ is it's not just this clean up on the outside thing, make you look better, and then you got to figure things out from there. It is true change in your life. And, what he's tried to find change in and all these meetings and this and that. And again, though those have been good things for his life, he's looking for more than just cleaning on the outside. Yeah. He's looking more than just change from a superficial perspective. Yeah. He's looking for something that really is going to change his life. And, if he could hear that, if others could hear that, stop making the excuses. Stop trying to justify why you're there. Stop trying to, convince yourself that where you're at is okay. And just acknowledge that, if I can get past that, if I can stop making the excuses, then maybe something can happen in my life, And he talked about that through that. He's like, I don't know if it's and I said a little bit earlier, I don't know if it's I'm scared or, do I really want change? Well, I find myself saying no. Well, again, he's really that last hurdle of what God can do in his life. And I wonder how many of us, whether it's somebody that's lost or even, again, somebody that's saved, I wonder how many of us Jesus is saying, hey, look, do you really want what I've got for you? Yeah. And how many of us are saying, well, in my mind, yeah, but really in my heart, no. Yeah. I don't know if I want that or if I'm ready for that in this life. And we're just staying laid up there, justifying why we're there, convincing ourselves that we're okay in where we're at.
Yeah.
And so, again, a little bit different episode. Not really what we came into the studio today expecting to talk about. I think it's completely on track with kind of initially what we were talking about, discussing in here today. But, for the one that maybe you're listening and you stumbled on this podcast and maybe you don't know Christ, maybe you don't know, you can't for surety say that he is your Savior, here's the thing. He can bring that change in your life, and that change is worth it for your life. And we can spend episode after episode after episode telling you about the goodness of God and what he can do for you and how God can change your life and what salvation can do for you. But here's the reality of it. You've got to ask yourself, do I really want it?
Yeah.
And if you can get to the place where you say, yes, it's worth it, then Jesus Christ can absolutely take your life and save it and change it in ways that you never thought was possible.
Yeah.
For the one that maybe you are saved, but your story isn't what you want it to be and you want things to change a little bit. Again, ask yourself, what's holding me back from the change in my life? Am I like what kind of at the beginning of it? Am I praying, but I find myself saying, I'm going to go back and do those things, and we're just convincing ourselves? Yeah. Are we making excuses as to why we can't see that change happen? Like this guy here, I don't have anybody carry me. Jesus didn't ask him, do you have anybody to carry him? He just said, listen, I'm acknowledging that there needs to be something that happens in your life. Do you want it?
Yeah. Well, even in that story, he says, "Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me in the pool, but while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. And Jesus said unto him, Arise, take up thy bed, and walk." And it wasn't. It was then that he was made whole, but there was still the action of him having to arise, take up his bed, and walk.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality of a lot of Christians is they want something different. They want to be able to say that they want something different, but they don't really want something different.
Yeah.
I know what the truth is, but I don't want the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, we've justified laying there is better than the alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's where it's at, and so change can happen. Again, we've seen it. We can say it till we're blue in the face. Seen what God can do in big ways.
Yeah.
But the question is this: do we want it? I think that's where he's at. I think he's searching. I think he's looking for something, and I really think one of the big steps for him is just getting to that place of saying, "I want this."
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if he wants it, God will give it to him.
Yeah.
But and so of course, praying for the guy. I hope that I hope he has an experience with God like he never thought was possible, and just God uses his life and can change it. But obviously, it's got to be something that he desires. Yeah. And so,
if you're listening to this episode, tag him or share it and send it to him. There is nothing more than I would love to see a sinner come to know Christ.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point of it. I know whenever this episode drops, I'm gonna send it to him.
Yeah,
and whether or not he sees it, I have no idea.
Yeah,
but he's on the brink of something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I pray for that one they said is an acquaintance with him. I pray that something said gets a hold of his life. Again, that should be our desire as Christians, is that anybody and everybody experiences what we talk about in here week after week, and that is the saving grace of God and what it can do for their life. That's why we sit in here and talk. That's why we put on the headphones. That's why we do what we do, so that salvation and the gospel can get out there and be furthered, and God can change lives. So Theo Vaughn, wherever you at, whatever your questions are, whatever God's doing in your life, man, we're praying, and
We got a seat right here for
we
you.
got a seat here, and we hope that in Christ, not in the world, not in anything else, but that in God you find the answers of those questions, and God gets a hold of your life, and God can change you and do something great that you never thought was possible. So, guys, we appreciate y'all. Again, a little bit different of an episode today, but thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Have to do this again.
absolutely. So if there's a clip you think we need to see, or some other podcast you think we ought to listen to and kind of talk about it, let us know. Drop it in the comments. Send us a link of something, and we'd love to talk about it. But again, if you want to see that change, big question is, do you want it? That's really what we got to come down to at the end of the day. And God can do what you think is impossible in this life. So, guys, we appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next episode.
Appreciate y'all.